Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, an explanation to de Gruyter's Purchase to Open eBook pilot initiative. My name is Andrea Gregor-Adams, and I'm part of the institutional team here at de Gruyter, and I'm very excited to host this session today, where we will explain our new eBook pilot model to you, and we will go in greater details, and we will also be here to answer all of your questions and queries about this crowdfunding model. We allowed about up to 1 hour, so our presentations will be about 20 minutes, and after that we have plenty of time for discussions and questions from you. Before I get started, there are just a couple of house rules. Let's see. Your video and your audio is muted as always, and as I said, the questions go in the chat box and we will talk about them and answer them right after our presentations. The session is recorded and you can share this recording with all your colleagues, talk about this initiative, and hopefully all of them will be as excited as we are about it. If you do have any more questions or would like to speak to us after the event, I will also, alongside the recording and the slide deck, will be information on who to contact in your region to discuss this project further. So for now, I would like to introduce to you our presenters for the day. We have with us today Christina Lembrecht. She is head of open access and open research at de Gruyter. And before she took on her current role, Christina has been championing for a very long time the development of de Gruyter's open access book portfolio in various positions as acquisition editor and project manager in humanities and social sciences. Christina will give us an insight into our current OA monograph landscape here at de Gruyter. Furthermore, we have Anne O'Riordan. She is head of sales for Europe, Middle East and Africa at de Gruyter. And Anne has been with de Gruyter for over 10 years, and she's been diligently serving our customers in various sales roles. And today, Anne will demonstrate to you how your institution can benefit from participating in this Purchase to Open eBook pilot. And we're also delighted to have here Dave Solano, de Gruyter's sales director in the Americas, who is here to answer all your questions in the different regions. So all of us are here to answer your questions, and we will start with Christina for the first presentation. So Christina, over to you.
Yeah, a warm welcome also from my side. It's a pleasure to give you a short overview on the development of our open access book program, and by doing so, explaining why we have been embarking into collectively funded models for open access books. Next slide, please. This first chart shows the development of de Gruyter's Gold Open Access book portfolio. We published the first 2 open access books in 2010, just 2 years after introducing ebooks for all new publications. After selling and sending print copies to libraries and end customers around the globe for centuries, digital formats has, as a first step, and open access publication as a second step, have added new possibilities to fulfill our mandate to ensure the best dissemination and visibility for the work and the research we publish. In the first years up to 2015, as you can see in this chart, OA books were in the clear minority compared to what we often today call the traditional publications. We published only a handful of open access monographs and collected volumes in the first years. This changed in 2015. Since then, we have seen a constant and dynamic development, which is due mainly to the increase of open access funding in Europe, particularly in the context of larger third-party funded research projects. Last year, in 2021, we published around 200 of our new book releases immediately in open access. As you can see in the next slide, this corresponds to almost 15% of our total book output. The graph also shows that the proportion of open access publication varies greatly between subject areas. While we have a share of more than 25% in some of our humanities publishing lists, the share is significantly lower in other fields, such as, for example, business and economics, and also in our STM book program. In the next slide, I would like to take a closer look on how our OA books are funded. Most of our open access books, almost 90%, are funded through publication fees, often referred to as book processing charges. BPC mean that one party, generally the author or his or her institutions, fund the open access publication. I find it very helpful to look at the BPC landscape in more detail and suggest here to distinguish between 3 different funding sources. In the chart, you can see the distribution in 2020 and 2021. So more than 1/3 of our OA books were financed via regular budgets of the researcher or the research institution. Just over 1/4 of our OA books are funded through research grants, such as, for example, projects funded by the European Research Council or the German Research Foundation. And for these institutions, often a recommendation or even a mandate is in place to publish open access. For another 1/4 of our OA books, funding applications are submitted to OA book funds, which exist, for example, in Europe, in Austria and Switzerland, on a national level, or are established at the level of individual universities, similar to the APC funds for open access journals. Also, the BPC model enabled us to develop our open access book portfolio over the past years quite significantly. The BPC model also raises some concerns. The funding structure makes it very clear that access to open access book funding is still relatively exclusive. It is limited to scholars granted with major third-party funded research grants, to academics that are based at institutions that are well-financed and or have a dedicated open access funds and policies in place. And funding also depends on the author's affiliation or nationality. Or to put differently, the BPC model raises questions about equal access to publishing opportunities. Next slide, please. These concerns are why we and others have started to explore new approaches as an alternative to book processing charge models and to enable more authors to publish open access. These models are often referred to as non-BPC or diamond models, and in one way or the other, they intend to translate one of the advantages of legacy publishing into the open access publishing ecosystem. Many institutions are paying a small amount to support open access publications. While we participated in the first rounds of Knowledge Unleashed, we started to work in 2019 on launching our own collaboratively funded OA book projects in the German market, together with the German consortium. And this year, with the support of around 40 libraries from the German-speaking countries, we are able to flip 30 titles in German linguistics, literary studies, and history to open access. So these are publications that have been planned as closed access publications and are now transformed to open access, thanks to the participation of 40 libraries. And after we have tested and successfully established our collaborative funding models in the German market, the next step for us is to pilot these models internationally. And I'm very excited about the purchase to open model, which we are presenting now in more detail. And with that, I'm handing over to Anne, who will present the model.
Great, thank you very much, Christine. Yeah, I'm going to start with a few words about why we launched this pilot and what we hope to achieve. And then I'm going to move on and talk about the model in detail and give you all the information with regards to the content, the workflow, and timeline. So next slide. So as Christina said, our goal is to make open access possible for authors with no access to funding. And we're interested in developing a sustainable non-BPC business models. And with that in mind, we have launched this collaborative crowdfunding initiative. We're working with the JISC consortium in the UK. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with JISC, and in other markets with other consortia partners and with single institutions worldwide. And the goal is to publish up to 30 frontlist titles, including both monographs and collected volumes in immediate gold open access. In terms of content, we're focused on authors and editors affiliated to UK, US, and international institutions. And titles will be selected from key series in our international English language programs in business and economics, classical studies, and linguistics. And we will use the experience we gained from our German language open access book transformation activity. And also, this is an opportunity for us to further develop back office workflows to support open access book publishing. Next slide. So why are we doing this? Christina already mentioned we have some experience of crowdfunding subject packages with our German language humanities program. We now want to develop experience and expertise of open access book transformation in the US and in the rest of the world, basically the US, the UK, rest of world. And we're aware of the lack of funding for BPC models, and particularly in the humanities and social sciences. And based on the conversations we're having with consortia and institutions, we see that there is an interest in alternative models. And we hope this pilot will help us to gain some evidence in terms of the overall level of support we can achieve for such a pilot. And also in terms of the subject areas that are of interest and which countries are going to provide support. And we also need to develop good workflows at De Gruyter to ensure we provide the necessary support to institutions participating in this model. So here I'm referring to the back office workflows for order processing, delivering metadata targets and mark records and so on. And that's another reason why it makes sense for us to start with a small scale pilot. So there are lots of conversations going on within De Gruyter and with our partners about more ambitious transformation in the future. And the experience and evidence we will gain from this pilot will hopefully help us to progress to larger scale transformation in the future. Next slide, please. Then moving on to look at the model in a bit more detail. What is the structure of the pilot? It's a crowdfunding model. We're offering 3 subject packages: business and economics, classical studies, and linguistics. All titles are in English, 10 titles in each package. And as I said, in the UK, the pilot is supported by the national consortium called JISC, but we're extending the offer to individual institutions in the rest of the world. Next slide. Getting into a bit more detail about how the model works. So I already said 3 subject packages, 10 titles per package, business and economics, classical studies, and linguistics. Institutions have the option to pick and choose within those 3 packages. You're not obliged to participate in all 3. We have a tiered pricing structure available that's based on Carnegie classifications in the US, and in the rest of the world we're using the basic small, medium, and large tiering. And I've got more detail on pricing in a later slide. In terms of the funding target we need to achieve at De Gruyter, we're looking at €70,000 per package of 10 titles. So that works out at €7,000 per title to publish in immediate gold open access. Next slide. So a bit more detail about the model. Oh, back one. So as I said, the goal is €70,000 per package of 10 titles. And I hope we will achieve that. But if we don't, if the funding target isn't met, the number of titles published in open access will be reduced. So for example, if we achieve funding of €56,000, then we would publish 8 titles in open access. If the funding level reached is less than 35,000 per collection, we won't proceed with the open access transformation. However, in that scenario, participating libraries and institutions would obviously get perpetual access to all of the titles in the package. And then just to make the point that because we're dealing with tiered pricing, it's, at this point, obviously the total funding per collection depends on the number of institutions and the tiers of pledging institutions. Next slide, please. So now moving on to talk briefly about the content. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I'm happy to forward more detail on request, so we can provide, although we don't have firm title lists, I can provide series lists and potential titles. But for now, just some brief information on the 3 subjects, starting with the linguistics package. De Gruyter Mouton specializes in linguistics and publishes internationally renowned range of book series and reference works. The package will include titles from well-established key series, so including topics in English linguistics, dialects of English, and trends in applied linguistics. And as I said earlier, we're going to be focused on US, UK, and international authors and editors. The next package, Business and Economics, will include standalone titles and series titles in management studies. And the series here will include De Gruyter studies in innovation and entrepreneurship and studies in corporate governance. And here again, UK, US, international authors and series editors will be prioritized. And the third package is classical studies. And this is a very strong publishing area for De Gruyter, both in books and journals. All 10 titles in this package will be from our series cluster, Trends in Classics. So some of the series included will be Scholarship in the Making and Pathways of Reception. So that's a brief overview of the content, but more information available on request. So next slide. Yeah. This is pricing information I promised earlier. So as I said, for the US and Canada, we will be using the Carnegie tiers, and we've got price points ranging from $500 for a very small institution up to €2,000 for the large, $2,000 for the large tier. And in the rest of the world, we will be using standard small, medium, and large tiers with pricing ranging from €800 for small, €1,000 for medium, and €1,500 for large institutions. And with an average price per title for the titles we'll be selecting, the average price point is 150 to about €220. So taking that into account, this pricing, the tiered pricing, represents good value for all tiers, really. So moving on to the timeline. So in terms of timeline, we're now in the pledging period, which will continue until the 31st of July. And in September, we will confirm the list of titles. And during the period September 2022 to August 2023, up to 30, and I hope 30 titles will be published in immediate gold open access. And next slide. Oh,
Let me see. Are we missing one?
yes, but that's okay. I've got some more information about workflow. I don't really need a slide to explain it. We will make this presentation will be available afterwards, and there is a link to the Gruyter cloud page and the form stack order form. So we'll provide that link.
Yes,
I'll provide afterwards.
Yeah,
yeah. In terms of workflow, then what happens if you decide to participate? Well, we on receipt of your order, we would send an email confirmation and describing the next steps. Then in September, you would receive a title list detailing all of the titles that will be published in immediate gold open access. And then as and when each of the titles are published, you'll receive an access confirmation message with MARC records, with a MARC recorder, depending on the number of titles that are opened at any one time. At the end of the period of opening titles, so that's in August 2023, we will then create discovery targets for the 3 packages of 10 titles. We will also publish a list of titles and the funding institutions on a dedicated landing page on Gruyter.com. So that is a summary of the workflow post-order, and I'm sorry that I don't have the slide, but we will make it available afterwards. And yes, that's my last slide in terms of describing the offer. I hope that I've given you a clear understanding of the offer, the contents, and the workflow. More detailed information is available on request, and you can contact me directly or your own regional sales contact. And this is maybe a good time to thank everyone for joining and to hand over to Andrea and find out if there are any questions in the chat.
Yes, and just to reiterate, I will send that extra slide over with a slide deck where there is a timeline and all the information Anne has just been speaking about. There are a couple of questions. I will start with the questions that are written there. The first question is there an overlap with the EBA collection? So well, I guess if the customer has...
It depends, obviously, on the package, the EBA package the institution in question has. If you have an old De Gruyter EBA, then you would eventually get access to all of these titles anyway. But if you wanted to purchase these titles within the EBA, you would be paying the list price for those titles, and you wouldn't be contributing to the purchase to open pilot. Therefore, yes, you would be purchasing them for your library. But if you participate in the purchase to open model, then you're helping to helping us to publish those books in immediate gold open access, and you're freeing up your EBA credit to purchase other titles.
Thank you, Anne. Yes, I hope that we answered that question, Tamar. There's another question. When is payment expected from participating institutions?
Oh, there's a good question. I think that there is flexibility. I mean, typically with international customers, we're looking at 60 days, 60 to 90 days. But if there was a specific request for delayed invoicing or extended payment, we could certainly, you know, look at those on a case by case. I don't know if Dave wants to add anything to that, but that's certainly the case for the regions that I look after.
Yeah, that's also the case here in the Americas. And Susan, you and I could, if you'd like, I could touch base with you outside of this session to talk about that topic a little bit further.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you, Dave. And I'll put the contact details in there, Susan, for you, so you can contact Dave afterwards. The next question is, are the Jewish studies was just a pilot or is not part of the new model? Okay, I don't really understand that, Daphne. The question,
I can jump in,
yeah?
possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, the Jewish studies pilot was in the German market in 2020. It was our first pilot. We have a very, I think, a national as well as an international Jewish studies program. However, in the German market, at least we learned that Jewish studies has been not like a big subject in the for universities and institutions. It was difficult to gather the maximum or the required participation level. So it was very well received with the authors. And we do have, but we have seen that it was difficult to find the amount of participating libraries to make that happen on a more broader scale, so to say. Is that, so it was a pilot, that is the answer. And it's not part, at least currently not part of the current offer. However, I mean, we have chosen 3 subject areas where we have, where we are very reputed in, and where we have UK, US authorship. But if there's interest in other subject areas, I mean, if the pilot will be successful, we can happily look into that.
Thank you. And Daphne says thank you. So you answered her question. Susan says, okay, I know Dave from way back. So Dave, I think you're in there for our discussion. Brilliant. Are there any more questions for our panelists? Because we do have time if you would like to. Otherwise, I don't know, Anne, is it worth me sharing that one slide which you weren't able to show, or?
I think that we'll be sending it to all of the participants.
Yeah, I will.
So
yeah.
I think that's sufficient.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, there is another question here, Anna. What is the difference in terms of access between those who pay the costs of the pilot project and those who do not pay any costs? Why should an institution pay if those who pay nothing have the same benefits? I guess, who would like to do it? Dave first or Anne?
Yeah, I think not. I think Christina. I mean, I'll say something, but I'll hand over to Christina.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the I guess the dilemma with a crowdfunding model. I mean, ours isn't the only one out there, but yes, that you're quite right. Some institutions pay for the benefit of the wider community, and yeah,
I think
I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's to support the open access transformation, right? With a smaller amount of money, making it possible than the, let's say, BPC model where one institution pays it all for their author. So I think it's a different paradigm, if you want to say that like this, how you could engage with open access transformation, but it requires a different thinking. So you're contributing to the benefit of all. And yeah, you can benefit from it if it happens and you be a free rider. But I think this is part of the change of, well, perception thinking in collaboratively funded OA models.
Yes, I think the idea is many institutions pay a small amount for the greater good of the researchers.
Yeah, as opposed to a standard, a BPC charge is minimum 7,000, quite often a great deal more than that.
Yeah.
And in this way, and also, you know, we've tried to select titles where we have contributors, editors, and authors in the US, in international, well, outside our traditional German-speaking markets, so that, you know, if your institution or your authors may benefit by having their books published in open access, and in return you're paying just a small fraction of the total cost of that.
Yes, and I hope we answered that question for you, but please do write to us afterwards. We can continue the discussion. When will the recording be available? Yes, I will send this recording via email in the next couple of days, so it won't be long. I'll just work on the recording and then we'll send it to you tomorrow, the day after, alongside the slide deck and the missing slides, sorry. That's so far all the questions I have, but I'll wait for one more minute in case somebody has a last minute question. And I think perhaps that's a sign that Anne and Christina have explained the model very well, and I hope that many of you will find this initiative of interest to you to support. If there are no further questions, then I would like to thank Christina and Anne and Dave for all your insights and your thoughts and details into this initiative. And as I said, I hope you find it positive to support this initiative from your end. And it leaves me to wish you a wonderful day. Thank you for joining and taking a time out. Stay safe, enjoy the summer, and I hope to hear from you again soon on our next forthcoming event at the Gruyter. Thank you very much, and we will speak to you again. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.